If they don't have a designer, it can't be designer. And sadly, that's the case with a lot of eyewear brands today. Corporate interests infiltrate brand identity until brands are left with no identity at all. Just a familiar logo slapped on a cheap product in a veiled attempt to exploit customers already loyal to their brand. And while this practice has become commonplace in the eyewear industry, that's not the story of Jacques Marie Mage. The brand was started by French designer and namesake Jerome Jacques Marie Mage. Young Mage was born into an affluent family, his father a renowned surgeon, his mother a school director. Despite this, Mage was interested in design from an early age. His infatuation began at the age of 10 when his brother came home from school wearing a pair of Warnay sunglasses, a prominent French brand at the time. Mage recalls being mesmerized by how cool they made his brother look. His enthusiasm for design, however, was not shared by his parents, who, though supportive, were also skeptical at their son's non-academic inclination. Nonetheless, at the age of 15, Mage left for Paris to study art before finally attending design school. By this time, he had already become an avid collector of fine goods, including vintage eyewear and BMX bikes. Yeah, kind of random. Upon finishing school, JJ, that's what I call him, largely based on his love of West Coast street culture, decided to move to California, where he would gain experience with a prominent optics company. In time, though, seeking more creative freedom, Mage left that role to pursue his own design firm. The company saw steady growth, eventually winning multi-year contracts with the really prominent brands. However, after the crash of 2010, many of these same businesses began to cut their spending, with creative work now being constantly constrained by budgets and bottom lines. Mage began to grow uninspired and even cynical. He wanted the freedom to design products that were great just for the sake of it. Product that was so well crafted it could stand apart as art, and he wanted to do it with his first love, eyewear. The vision was clear from the very start. Vintage-inspired, luxury glasses that were so well crafted people would regard them as heirlooms worthy of being handed down to future generations. In stark contrast to the prevailing minimalist aesthetic of the time, his brand would embrace a different look that Jerome would term maximalist. Designs featured sculpted acetate, bold colors, and unique silhouettes, drawing inspiration from the Art Deco movement of the early 1900s in France. When Jerome shared his vision with his parents, to his surprise, they were actually supportive. His father, a car enthusiast, even went on to give him advice that would shape the business. When I go to these automobile events, the one thing that these rich people hate is when the person next to them has the same automobile. So if you are going to do the luxury, everything must be limited. I'm sorry. Mage accepted this advice, but this approach did not come without its challenges. The notion of a new brand, constantly designing and setting up production only to make a small quantity of glasses was not exactly practical. As a result, his competitors scoffed, believing that his business model would add a level of complexity to his operations that simply could not scale and may even ultimately bankrupt him. Mage did not waver. In his words, to work with Jacques Marie Mage means everything is more difficult. But I feel when things are more difficult, people rise above what they are capable of. In theme with making things more difficult, Mage opted to produce his glasses in Japan. This was despite the fact that most luxury brands produce their glasses in Italy. But in Japan, Mage saw a culture that better fit the brand. This was because their manufacturing involved vintage machines, age-old techniques, and a level of handcrafting that required years of mastery and unyielding meticulousness. Additionally, because his designs were unconventional, often it was the case that he couldn't just simply select products from supplier catalogs or fit seamlessly into production systems. Nonetheless, Mage embraced all of these early challenges, and ironically, they added another level of customization to his pieces. With his constant visits to his suppliers and manufacturers, especially early on, understandably, some of his partners were a little overwhelmed at the frequency of his visits. However, over time, these partners came to respect Mage. In him, they saw a man with an unyielding commitment to his vision, a vision that they wanted to help him realize. For JJ, there is no design without a story. A lifelong collector himself, he understood that the thing that makes an object collectible is the story that surrounds it. Mage made this a feature of the brand, even going so far as to include inserts in the packaging that would detail the innovation behind each of his models. He also made it a point to collaborate with other artists, photographers, and designers for many of his projects. This helped to bring even more attention to the brand and made the eventual product releases even more momentous. Mage also began to visit trade shows and share his passion with buyers personally, while still maintaining selectivity over which optical partners could distribute his brand. With his level of attention to detail and craftsmanship, it wasn't long before the brand began to gain a following. Over time, this following grew to include celebrities like Jonah Hill, Mos Def, and the late Kevin Samuels. In 2021, the brand got another boost in popularity when they were featured on the HBO mega hit series Succession. Kendall Roy, the name of the character that wore the glasses in the show, actually worked with Jacques Marie Mage to customize the glasses that he would wear on the show to make them more consistent with his character. Mage, to his credit, seems undeterred and steadfast in his vision to create the perfect pair of eyewear. In a recent interview, when asked how it feels to reach this level of success, Mage said, "I'm not so interested in what we've done, I'm more interested in what we're gonna do."